Haha, I got it working. Okay. Alright. This is exciting. Let's see, is this? Hello, hello. Welcome. Just gonna wait until someone joins. Hello, viewer. One viewer. Don't know who that is, but hello. Let's see. Oh, it's just me. It's not a viewer, it's me. Okay. I'll give it another minute, and if nobody shows up, I'm just going to go ahead and continue, because this will be loaded as a video afterwards, and I don't want to just be sitting here looking at me. So we'll start. I hope everybody's having a good day. I had to wake up super early today. So in the summer months, when it starts to get really hot, the change of like when sunrise happens allows us to start the day earlier, because we're pretty much at the mercy of the sunlight. So if we can get up earlier and beat the heat, or be out of the heat before we have to spend hours in it, the better. So work is now starting at 5 a.m. I mean, it's nice because it's cooler still, but it's an early start. But I do get off at 1:30, so that's nice. Otherwise, I'd be there super late. So yes. Okay. Let's go ahead and get started. If there's any problem with like the sound of the music being too loud, let me know, because I'd rather you hear me and the music's just kind of a background filler and like mood setter than it is anything else. So just let me know if it's too loud. Welcome. New archaeological stream, new news going on and everything. I've been thinking about everything I want to do with this stream and how I want to proceed forward with it. And one of the things I would like to do is something having to do with Native Americans. I work in CRM, so a lot of the archaeological material we come across is Native American, and I know that, the normal grade school doesn't really cover, hey Drewski, doesn't really cover the variety, how rich, in-depth, and diverse the Native American population really is. So I was thinking maybe I could choose a Native American tribe, either existing or no longer existing, and cover it maybe once a month in the stream. Just do like a brief little thing on it. And so I figure I'll do that at the last Wednesday of every month, and that will be next Wednesday. So give myself a little bit of time to prepare it and do it right. And then on top of the news that we're doing, I will also do a brief overview of a Native American tribe. I've picked out 12 random ones, and just like completely random, and then I put them on a list, and I will have people in the Discord actually vote on what they will end up doing. It will kind of be a bit of a blind vote, because I don't want to give them a name and then they go looking up all these names and kind of already have an idea about them. I want to kind of present nicely new material, or maybe not new material. Maybe you did have an education that really did cover your local tribes and the history of Native Americans. But yeah, so on the Discord you'll be able to vote. We already have one. Did it by a numbers game, so everybody voted for a number, and surprise, surprise, everybody, like, I don't know, probably 80% of people voted for 7. Wonder what it is about that. Is it just like pop culture lucky 7 or something? I don't know. Alright. So that's one plan. Another thing I want to continue doing that I had sort of started in the first time is the like little slideshow lesson that I would do. And I think I would like to continue that, but I think I might have put too much information, because I would cover an entire chapter in one of my textbooks that I've kept from undergrad, and I might have just provided too much. I don't know. If any of you came here from my Twitch before, let me know if it was just too much information, if you want more in-depth, less in-depth, stuff like that. That'd be nice to know. As always, I am doing a live stream because I want to be able to interact with you guys, and I answer questions as they come up, and just kind of make this more of a laid-back, cool thing, rather than the other countless archaeological and anthropological YouTubes there are out there. There's actually a lot, and they're really interesting. I do recommend you looking some of them up. I could probably put together a list and put them on the Discord for people if that's something you're interested in, or Twitter as well. There's a lot of archaeologists very active on Twitter that I could put a list together on too, or instead of putting a list together, you could just follow me on Twitter. I can put, it's Bones of Amber. Let's see. Yeah. So I'll just link it for future reference for people. Oh, I can't link it. Can I not talk? Am I not allowed to talk? There it is. Okay. So, yeah, people can go there and follow me on Twitter. I follow other archaeologists. I'm not the most active on Twitter. I'm kind of trying to change that because I never used Twitter before this. It just wasn't my thing. It's too low of a text count, and it just seemed like there was a lot of drama on that website. But I found out last year that science Twitter is very, very active, so that's awesome. I started to use it to help kind of promote this stream. Alright. Let's get started, shall we? Oh, no. Okay. So, as you guys know, I like Feedly. It's just an RSS feed that collects all of the articles from various outlets that I've gone to in the past, and it brings them all together, so I'm not having to go to a whole bunch of different websites. I recommend it if you like reading scientific articles, or really, it doesn't have to be scientific articles. One thing, my general, it used to just be like a whole bunch of cat and dog stuff. Now it's only because of the I Can Has Cheeseburger thing. So, yeah, what's this? I have selective hearing. Sorry, you weren't selective. So sassy. So sassy. Anyways, yeah, you can do like cute things, funny things, or your scientific articles. I really enjoy it because it brings it together and makes it easy. Alright, so let's see what we got. In a remote Amazon region, study shows indigenous peoples have practiced forest conservation for millennia. So, in the news today, we see a lot about the forest fires and preserving the forest and not tearing it down for paper and like furniture and any other type of wood product we utilize today. And so we kind of think of it as a modern thing, that this is something that our superior technology has allowed us to do, along with just sheer number of humans alive today. But we have evidence that people have actually been concerned about the forest and manipulating their environments for a very long time. So let's do just kind of a brief thing on this. And it's interesting that's the Amazon, because we always think of it as this mysterious place. The Amazon, the world's largest and most biodiverse tropical forest, spanning 9 countries and more than 2.3 million square miles, was once thought by scholars to hold untamed, unaltered, pristine wilderness. However, the Amazon rainforest has long been home to many indigenous societies. In recent decades, researchers have found evidence of the many ways since prehistoric times that indigenous peoples have shaped forest composition and its diversity and domesticated native plants. The human footprint in a number of regions is undeniable. Agriculture, fish weirs, roads, changes in soil composition, and huge geometric earthworks called geoglyphs are evidence of the many ways indigenous groups have had a significant impact. Nevertheless, it is also becoming increasingly apparent that in some regions for thousands of years and into the present, the rainforest's native inhabitants have used forests in ways that didn't much change them, leaving vast tracts of land little altered. No forest clearing, and no agriculture with plants such as maize, squash, and manioc. What is that? Manioc? What is this? Commonly called cassava. Oh, okay. Or yucca is a woody shrub. Okay. Indicating that in anthropogenic age, humans have had little impact on these remote regions for as many as 5,000 years. A new study published in the Journal Proceeding of the National Academy of Sciences, led by a Smithsonian researcher, proves that over millennia, a region of rainforest in the western Amazon shows no evidence of significant modification by indigenous societies. The study uses phytoliths, the microscopic silica bodies left behind by neotropical plants after they decay, to determine what types of plants were growing at various periods along the charcoal for the detection of the use of fire. Researchers working in the remote Putumayo region in northeastern Peru collected soil core samples from 3 research campsites in the interfluvial areas. The forest located far from rivers and major tributaries known as Tierra Firme. So we're looking at here. I mean, this is huge. This is a lot. Not such a big area. Played a very important role in the sustainable use of the forest and the conservation of biodiversity, and they should continue to be central to it, especially because of their deep knowledge of the forest and its relevance in their daily lives. So, as we all hear from the green movement, is save the rainforest, the Amazon is dying, people are destroying the Amazon, and it's true. Like if you look in Brazil, the destruction has forced many indigenous tribes to emerge from the forest. Some have very rarely come into contact with the modern world. I think not too long ago, just a few years ago, a tribe that had never been in contact with the outside modern world recently emerged and was forced from their land because they can't survive there anymore. Their territory has gotten too small for them or just completely destroyed. So it's actually a really, really sad thing, and many native tribes are trying to get more of a voice in it's not ours, in the governments of the countries down there. As you saw, it covers such a huge area. There's multiple countries, laws, people affecting this, and it can be very difficult to try and come out of your current state of living and try to make your way in a completely different world. Some have been, a lot of native tribes were forced onto reservations down there. They're still there. I know in certain areas of Brazil, they've had issues where the governments put Native Americans into a reservation, and then they just left. They went back to the forest. They're like, I don't like this. I'm going back there. So it's funny. Sometimes they'll come back. They'll come back and get like machetes and stuff like that. Alright. So yeah, it would be great if natives who have lived off of the land for so long, many generations, could have a say in what's going on with the Amazon and how to preserve it and such things. Let's see, any questions so far? You hear background noise? Do you still hear it? Yeah? What are you hearing? What could it be? Is it the music? I do have a fan going. It could be that. Hold on. Alright, so I turned the fan down. Hopefully that helps. You know, it's getting hot out there. Stay cool, guys. Stay cool. Okay. Continue on. Let's see what we got. Pleistocene sediment DNA from Denisova Cave. I think I covered that last time. Like, we went over it. Let's just see. Researchers have analyzed DNA from 728 sediment samples from Denisova Cave. Their study provides unprecedented detail about the occupation of the site by both archaic and modern humans over 300,000 years. Researchers detected the DNA of Neanderthals and Denisovans, the two forms of archaic hominins who inhabited the cave, and the DNA of modern humans who appeared around the time of the emergence of an archaeological culture called the Initial Upper Paleolithic around 45,000 years ago. Yeah, I think I went over this. So the Denisova Cave is where we first found the finger bones of the Denisovians. We have been able to get many DNA samples. This one researcher's article is coding 728 so far, which is a vast amount to collect without contaminating it, getting it to the lab, being able to process it, then analyze it. Like, that's so much work. This is what we do, you know. A lot of people find what archaeologists do so interesting. We have it in our pop culture, the Tomb Raider, we have the Mummy, even that, what is it, the like, possession one where she ends up throwing up pea soup. That one started in an archaeological site. There's this romanticization of archaeologists and the science that they produce, but it's many hours of painstaking, detailed work. And when people start asking me about, you know, what I do on a day-to-day basis, people are really interested in that. People's eyes start to glaze over. I've seen it so many times, and it's hard because sometimes you're not really doing something super interesting. You're kind of just doing the footwork. Like, yeah, I was able to excavate 2 centimeters this year or something, and depending on what's going on, the layers you're doing and everything, or you're not even excavating. I am currently working in CRM, which is Cultural Resource Management, and you don't really dig often. So there's multiple stages in an excavation. You could do the shovel probes, which is just you take a shovel and you dig a hole about the circumference of the blade. There's then the second stage where you will do a randomization of units. So that's a meter by a meter square dug straight down into the ground. And then there's third, which is full-on excavation of a site. But it's not as common in the CRM to fully excavate a site, because the main part of being in CRM is preserving those sites. So you find and you record, but you don't really want to destroy it, because the excavation, once it's done, you can't get that information back. And science is always improving, the technology we utilize is always improving. So sometimes we just kind of, we think something's here, we're going to leave it be and record it. That's about it. And that's a lot of what CRM archaeologists do. And a lot of archaeologists actually end up doing CRM at some point in their career. It's great to get fieldwork experience and just really get comfortable with your own personal skills in the field and know where you need to develop. CRM archaeologists are utilized all over the country. If you want to construct something, you are going to have to see, where are you digging, and you're going to have to abide by any state, federal, or any other type of laws that go along with that, and what you need done in order to make sure you don't destroy any archaeological material. We have, that might be fun. You guys might enjoy that. One of the things CRM archaeologists do is they monitor crews. So if construction is going on, or any type of excavation done by non-archaeologists, you'll have a professional archaeologist on site just monitoring and making sure that they're not coming across anything. And if they do, being able to identify what it is, report it, and document it properly. And when you do that, you end up, at the beginning of the project, having to give a archaeological sensitivity awareness type thing. So basically, you have to teach the crew what to look out for, because it might be a large area and they may be first to see something, and since they're the ones with the shovels, it's important that they are keeping an eye out too, and they know what to look for. It might be cool if I were to actually do a stream about that and just kind of give one of those lessons. So, tell me what you think. Is that something you'd be interested in? Yeah, let me know. Okay, any questions? Working in a snail space because you're not trying to ruin anything. Yes, snail space. Alright. Continue on. Fall of Aztec. Oh, this is interesting. So, when Spaniards and all the Europeans came over to the Americas, they came in contact with the Aztec Empire, and it's the history of Mesoamerica and South America, and even North America, all of the Americas, is told through the eyes of Europeans and the Eastern civilizations. One of the things is they didn't really write much down. The Aztecs did write some things down. They have the, or is it the Maya for the Popol Vuh? I think it's the Maya. But, yeah, if you don't write it down, it's not going to be around, especially if your group of people suffer some type of major decline in population. So a lot of Native American tribes, they have a rich history, but they passed it down orally and told stories. those tales is how they knew their history. But if you have a epidemic happen and over half of your population is wiped out from a disease, or you're enslaved, or just outright massacred, or you go to war or something, a lot of that information is lost. So getting an indigenous reframing of some of the histories is actually really, really interesting, and it could be very, very helpful. I know in Mesoamerica, a lot of the history that was written early on was actually done by like religious figures, so a lot of priests are the ones who wrote it, and obviously you're going to have a very biased viewpoint from there, because not only are you coming from a completely different culture and location in the world, but you're coming in order to convert these people. So you may not write things in the most flattering of light. But let's see, 500 years ago, on August 13th, 1521, the Aztec Empire in present-day Mexico fell to the Spanish conqueror Hernan Cortez. The Aztec Empire comprised 3 Nahua city-states, Tenochtitlan, Texcoco, and Tlacopan, with their capital, Tenochtitlan, located in present-day Mexico City. Tenochtitlan was taken and re-established as the seat of the Viceroyalty of Spain. For many, this date commemorates the beginning of a period of indigenous genocide, ruthless colonialism, forced religious conversion, and the erasure of indigenous knowledges and practices. This year, to commemorate the fall of the Aztec capital, Tenochtitlan, the Spanish conquerors, from the perspective of indigenous peoples in today's Mexico and Guatemala. Was it supposed to be Guatemala, not Guatemala? The Santo Domingo Center of Excellence for Latin American Research at the British Museum has facilitated a research project led by indigenous archaeologists and heritage specialists from the region. It will showcase their new interpretations of pictorial manuscripts and glyphs in the collection using contemporary indigenous knowledge and languages. So a lot of, if things were written down, they were done with pictographs and very colorful, very interesting, very unique design, as you can see. Instead of 13 August, the official date of the fall of Tenochtitlan, the archaeologists have chosen June 21st as a date to commemorate this year. June 21st is the birthday of Lord Eight Deer, Jaguar Claw, the protagonist of the Tonim Die, or Zuche Codex, which is a book in the museum's collection depicting the genealogies of 11th and 12th century rulers of the pre-colonial Mixtec region. A copy of this book can be viewed in the Mexico Gallery. Pre-conquest Mixtec people from what is now the state of Oaxaca and Puebla in Mexico were named after their date of birth according to a ritual calendar of 260 days. Pictorial manuscripts such as the Tonandie represent these days with animal signs and elements of the surrounding environment. Lord Eight Deer, who was born on the day of the deer sign, is most famous for uniting 3 Mixtec areas under his rule: Talantongo, Teozacualco, and Tututepec, all of which are located in Oaxaca, Mexico. The research group have chosen Lord Eight Deer's birthday as a way to recognize the cultural continuity of Mixtec peoples and to stress the urgent need to approach history from multiple indigenous perspectives. The legacies of the conquest of Tenochtitlan and the colonial administration that was put in place throughout Mesoamerica are still felt today. Okay, what is different here? For children in the... Oof, I don't know how to pronounce that. I can't. One of the oldest in central Mexico, and its relations with the ancient city Teotihuacan have been explored by many generations of archaeologists. History, yep. Just as the project uses a new date to commemorate the fall of Tenochtitlan, our group has also placed emphasis on the names of items in the British Museum collection. Okay. There are not only Mixtec researchers in the group, but also participants from Central America. Hold on. Mouth is getting dry. Central Mexico who speak Nahuatl and participants from the Maya area, which goes beyond Mexico to Guatemala. The researchers from Central Mexico have focused on another pictorial manuscript known as the Codex Auburn. Okay. Emphasis and origins of, as well as language in which, okay. Opens up a broad range of, okay, that's great. We've been studying sculptures. 2 of these relief sculptures are on display. Okay. I want to know, like, what... Nope. Colleagues not only focus on the womanhood in the pre-Hispanic Maya world, but also on the ongoing repression of Maya religion in Guatemala. Maya peoples continue to practice rituals that derive from those represented in images such as that of Lady Kaaba, whatever. However, due to the legacies of Spanish colonialism, which happened at the same time as the era of witch hunts in Europe, these practices continue to be dubbed witchcraft, and ritual specialists are regularly persecuted and killed. Okay. It's on stories and museums that care for collections from around the world, including the British Museum. Furthermore, by showcasing items that contain written narratives, our group emphasizes the power of works to speak for themselves. Okay. So, that sucks. It just goes over, like, how important it is, how great it is, and how you bringing a different perspective to such a complex event. Is a good thing, but I wanted to know, like, how are they taking it differently. So I took a course in Mesoamerican archaeology a long time ago, and one of the things is you learn about what was actually going on in the Aztec and Mayan empires, and how they fell. So the Aztec Empire was actually experiencing some severe issues on its own before the Spaniards arrived. So they were suffering droughts, they were suffering like cultural and social upheaval, and due to that they were in a weakened state when the Spaniards arrived, making it so easy. Like, that's one of the things you talk about in history, is how easily the Spaniards came and conquered. Well, of course, you know, if you have a civilization that is kind of declining due to multiple issues, yeah, it's going to be easy to come in and bring your diseases that kill half of them off, and then conquer the other half, you know? So bringing that perspective, I think, is really important to actually highlight what really happened back then, instead of this very Eurocentric, like, view of how amazing the Spanish and English and French were, when, you know, there's a lot to history and a lot of nuance in there. Yes, they did. They burned a whole bunch of their stuff. I mean, if you're going to come in and try to force people to believe in your religion, you're going to get rid of a lot of their... You're going to demonize their culture, you're going to demonize their beliefs, and you're going to destroy it. Book burning has been going on forever, so... Sadly, if you don't have a lot and what little you do have is burned, it's pretty much just all gone. Okay, not that it's all gone. Now, obviously, reading that article, there are manuscripts and such that survived. But it sounds like they're working closely with the museums there and in Mexico and in Britain, so it'll be interesting if you've ever been to those museums to return and see maybe what's changed and how things are spoken about has changed. Archaeologists propose 4,500-year-old burial mound as world's first military memorial. First evidence that medieval plague victims were buried individually with considerable care. Probably depends. New method could reveal that genes might have inherited from Neanderthals, so obviously we did inherit them. Don't really want to go into that. Inside the tombs of Saqqara. Oh, this is interesting. Early migrations of Siberians to America tracked using bacterial population structures. Early migrations of humans to the Americas from Siberia around 12,000 years ago have been traced using the bacteria they carried by an international team. Bacteria is interesting stuff. Let's see. Using samples of a stomach bacteria called Helicobacter pylori. Sorry if I butcher things. Latin names can be kind of difficult. So, Helicobacter pylori, which has shared a tight co-evolutionary relationship with humans for at least the past 100,000 years. Analysis using new statistical techniques provide evidence that humans colonized the Americas through a pre-Holocene migration of evolutionary ancient northern Eurasians across the Bering Land Bridge. If you don't know what that is, it's the bridge that connects, I want to say Australia, and that's not the name, Alaska. Connecting Alaska to present-day Russia. The study, entitled Helicobacter pylori's Historical Journey Through Siberia and the Americas, is published this week in the International Journal Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences by a team of researchers led by Professor Yoshan Moodley. The research used genetic information on H. pylori cataloged in Enterobase at the University of Warwick to trace the evolutionary history of the bacteria. H. pylori is a stomach bacteria that infects approximately half of individuals worldwide, but scientists have found that its genetic sequence also varies with the region that it is identified in. Makes sense. Previous analysis had identified 3 populations of H. pylori from individuals in Eurasia and the Americas, and current data demonstrates that H. pylori from Siberia define additional, previously unknown subpopulations of those groupings. The data also indicated one of these bacterial populations, which include H. pylori from indigenous Americas, was distributed over the breadth of Siberia, suggesting that this population may have traveled with humans to the Americas at some point. Isn't that interesting? Like, they're not even tracking the DNA of humans. They're tracking some little microscopic thing that just hitched a ride with us. Because, I mean, we think of ourselves as one organism, but on us and in us, we are created up of so many little microscopic life forms, especially our digestive tract. The microbiome in our digestive tract, all the way from the mouth to the other end, is important and there's a lot of research going into how important having that balanced microbiome is to one's health. And not just like you can have stomach issues, but you can have, and they're linking it, I mean, obviously more research needs to be done, but they're linking it to depression. They're linking it to issues with like the intensity of Alzheimer's and dementia. They're linking it to just not even like those severe ones, but just memory problems or like brain fog, if you've ever experienced that. Dental issues come from that. Many things. They're linking it to all kinds of stuff, and it's really interesting, the importance of these little microscopic bodies that we carry with us. And they're finding like some modern diets just are depleting the variety within the microbiome. Diet is such an interesting thing. They're doing research on like fossils as well, and the microbiomes that were around in their mouth during that time. So you create tartar, and it's called referred to as dental calculus. That tartar forms and solidifies, and it traps bits of food, saliva, and any little microscopic bodies that inhabit your mouth. So in fossils, if it has that dental calculus, you can actually kind of ascertain what they ate, how what they may have been suffering from, if they had some type of stomach flu or something like that. It's really interesting stuff, and quite new looking at such things. But I'm personally am very interested in it. Lots of new work coming from that. Let's see. Okay. Classical statistical analysis of the sequences were partially inconsistent with each other. To reconstruct the most likely evolutionary history for H. pylori in Siberia, researchers compared the most likely evolutionary models and timings using a technique called approximate Bayesian computation. The results showed that a tiny population of H. pylori colonized the Americas in a single migration event approximately 12,000 years ago, which we know is kind of contradictory to what current hypotheses are, is that the Americas was populated by several waves of migration. Mark Achtman said, this project began in the early 2000s when nothing was known about the genetic diversity of Helicobacter pylori in Central Asia. By 2007, hundreds of Siberian H. pylori strains had been cultivated and selected genes had been sequenced, but repeated attempts by multiple talented population geneticists failed to shed Ice Age These ancient human migrations took place during the last glacial period, or Ice Age, which lasted from 115,000 to 11,700 years ago. At that time, most of the northern Eurasia, also known as Siberia, would have been a frozen wasteland and presumably inhospitable to long-term human settlement. So how then did humans manage to migrate across this vast region and find their way to North America? This is one of the most important and as yet unanswered questions in human prehistory, because it would explain how humans were able to colonize the whole world from an African origin in such a short space of time. So, yeah, that's pretty interesting, just getting the evolutionary path of a bacteria to track it. The group of people who came to the Americas would have brought one variation, so kind of leaking it to COVID today. We hear about different strands of COVID having mutated in different parts of the world. That's what would have happened with this bacteria. They would have had little pockets of slightly different DNA going on in order to survive in those people and in that environment. Then that group of people would have left or separated and brought that bacteria with them, and then it would have continued to evolve over in the Americas, but still be kind of a cousin of the ones out in Siberia. Alright. So that's that. Let's see. I wanted to share this. I spent all day creating 3 slides of a presentation. I feel your pain, man. The general population and like movies and documentaries, they get the final product, but that final product is painstaking work. They're trying to just do the presentation, not actually put the information together or do the research of that information or analyze it. They're trying to put it in a presentation form, which can be very difficult. Not just dealing with like being up in front of people and stage fright, but trying to condense this subject that you have dedicated your life to pretty much and countless hours of your time to a short presentation time, and even like 20 minutes. That it can be very hard because you become engulfed in this project. You know all the ins and outs, and everything seems, or just about everything, seems important in order to be able to properly discuss the subject at hand and to ensure that the audience understands fully what you are doing and what your findings are. So it can be very difficult to take that information and transfer it. So yeah, if you ever listen to people in the scientific fields giving presentations, just remember a lot of work went into that, and not just what you may think happened, but a lot more. It's tedious work, and kudos to all you scientists and your ability to stay like calm and steadfast in your fields, and even when you just want to like throw it all out and say screw it, sticking with it. The Cima de los Huesos site is very important in understanding the kind of morphological variation that occurs within a single hominid population. By itself, a jaw like AT605 might seem like an outlier, but others within the sample share aspects of its form. Okay, so first of all, this Cima de los Huesos, I got this map. So it's in Spain. It's a cave out here in northern Spain that has given so many just like archaeological artifacts. It's amazing. It's such a dense area, lots of bones coming out of here. And if you didn't know, Neanderthals actually had their last little stronghold in the Iberian Peninsula, Spain. They were up in England, all the way through France, up through just all of Europe, really, and out to Israel, modern-day Israel, and north. So they spanned a huge area, and as they started to die out, their last stronghold was in Spain. So, yes, that's what we're talking about. This cave. Let's see, next is hominin. That is just species within our family tree. That's Neanderthals, Homo sapiens, Homo denisovians, Homo erectus, Homo heidelbergensis, all of these. So that's what hominin is. The name, when you come across an not an artifact, but like a fossil name, it can be kind of hard to understand what they're doing. It has to do with specific location and number, so what unit it was dug from, what cave it was dug from, what number it was of how many they found, all kinds of different things go into naming a fossil. So what's interesting is he's talking about this specific jaw may seem like an outlier, but others within the sample share aspects of its form. So one big topic of discussion and debate is how much variation you allow within a species that is extinct to consider it still part of the same species. So if you look at just the bones, the osteological remains of modern day humans, you can find someone who is fully grown at 4'8", and you can find someone who is the same age and, 7 foot. That variation, that's just size, but then if you were to look at other aspects and shapes of the skull and other things, it might come off if you aren't careful and you are very much a splitter. There's lumpers and splitters. As you putting those as two different species. Look, this one's 7 feet tall, this one's 4 feet tall. They're obviously different. They're not. They're both modern humans. And the amount of variety and differences we allow within an extinct species is a huge debate in how you categorize things, and it can be very difficult. And one paleoanthropologist may not actually agree with another paleoanthropologist on how much variation is within the Neanderthal or the Homo erectus or anything like that. It's an interesting topic, and it's probably one that's definitely going to come up in the future on this stream. I may even do an entire lesson plan of that. We'll see. I recommend, if you guys are interested, following John Hawkes on Twitter. He's very active. He's very, easy to understand. It's interesting. He's always got pictures along with this stuff. And, yeah, he's a good follow. He also has his own blog where he kind of does what I'm trying to do in analyzing research, current research, and giving kind of his 2 cents on things. Another Cima de los Huesos is one of the most important, the most complete skull, Cranium 5, shows extensive maxillary bone infection that spread from my broken premolar. Guys, take care of your teeth, brush them, floss them. Flossing is so important. I grew up not flossing. I didn't want to floss. I hated it. It made my gums bleed. When I started studying osteology, the horrible, state of some of the teeth I came across, I floss like a madman now. And once I started doing it regularly, at least once a day at minimum, it started to get where anything that was stuck between my teeth was obvious, and I could tell exactly, I might have missed something in this area, and now my gums are inflamed and they kind of sore. But whereas before, they were just inflamed, and you go to the doctor, I'm sure most of you go to the dentist and they say, do you floss? And you're like, yeah, and they're like, no you don't, because I can tell. And it's pretty obvious that you aren't flossing. But yes, studying osteology and learning about dentition and historic dentition just really makes you want to keep your teeth. But this one, okay, so we've got a Neanderthal who has an extensive maxillary bone infection. So he broke a premolar. A premolar is one of the 2 teeth. You have 1 and 2 on each side. So you have your incisors. They're the front ones that are for cutting into things. Then you have your canines. Then your premolars. And they tend to be kind of sharper. They have 2 cusps. The outer one tends to be a little bit bigger. And then you have your molars. So a maxillary, which is this bone right here. If If you look right here, this is the maxilla. They had a infection. So this cave-in right here, that's an infection that occurred in the bone. It had like a cyst, and it probably oozed. It made it very difficult to eat. They were probably in a lot of pain, had a lot of swelling. It might have even affected their sense of smell, because it's all right here. And they lost a lot of teeth. All of this right here is lost teeth due to that. So you can see right here that the alveoli is still present. It's not a super detailed picture. You can still kind of make it out right here. So that likely the tooth fell out either really, really close to death or after death, and it's just damage to the skull. Whereas these ones, the alveoli aren't there anymore, and then you have this huge concave. This person lost their teeth. They probably found it very hard to chew, suffered from fever and all kinds of things, and could have very well been what caused the death of this individual. You don't want any type of abscesses to form in your mouth. If you know anything about like farm animals, they'll form an abscess very, very quickly, massive, and it's bad, and it's life-threatening if it's not dealt with. Same with humans, prehistoric humans. So very cool to find the pathologies on these skulls and know what this individual might have gone through, you know? Alright. So that's all I have. I actually do need to sign off because I'm going to go to the gym. Have you done any field work in caves? If so, what's the experience like compared to open fields of that sort? I haven't, sadly. It's something I really, really want to get into. There was some excavations happening down in South Africa for the Naledi cave that I wanted to get in on because they needed petite people, but my caving experience just isn't there. I kind of got into it when I was working down in New Mexico because I really wanted to get in on that, and a lot of paleoanthropological materials are in cave systems, so I kind of needed to get into that, and I did. Out in New Mexico there are many caves to go explore, but where I'm living now, there's not many caves, so I don't really get to kind of grow that skill set, but I do try when I get the chance, and I'll continue trying to participate in any excavations that are occurring within a cave system. I know just from reading like the articles I have, depending on the cave you have, it can be very cramped and difficult to actually excavate, and it truly delays things even more than a regular open air type of excavation. And then depending on what cave it is, so like the Naledi cave is actually pretty like difficult to get through. You are running into issues of like claustrophobia and such. But yeah, I've wanted to. I'm going to try and get in on those hopefully soon, because I know they're not done in many of these caves. They're still doing like projects and fill skulls and such in there, and I'll see if I can volunteer. It'll be cool. Anyways, that's all I have today, and I hope you guys enjoyed the show. If you have any questions, let me know. I hope you join me in the Discord, and I've got to come up with some type of like introduction and sign-off thing. I'll think about that. Most YouTubers seem to have their saying to sign off. Anyways, you guys have a wonderful evening, and take care.